So a couple of days ago, I released a video where I talked about my design internship experience this summer and kind of walked you through all of the projects that I did and all of the design processes and decisions that I made to complete all those projects. So what I thought would be a cool video for today is to walk you through my design portfolio and my art portfolio online on my website before I do like kind of a renovation of it, so you can see exactly what I sent to the people who were making the decision about my internship, and also just walk you through a little bit of that timeline of how I met them and then how I ended up getting that internship and doing it in the summer. Before we jump right into the portfolio, make sure to hit that like button so that I know you enjoy these types of videos, and also subscribe to me so that you get more content. I'll be posting a lot more now that I kind of put time aside for YouTube, especially during this quarter, so let's get right to it. So I made my website on Squarespace, and this is what you see when you open the landing page. I've got 3 big headers, and they are creative projects, arts leadership, and film and video. And as you can see, I also have these same categories on the left, except creative projects is art and tech. So that's one thing that I want to definitely change a little bit around so that it becomes a little bit more clear. So let's see what happens when you click on that first link, creative projects. So here I've got a list of projects that I've made, bigger sculptures. If you click on art and tech, I've got a few more projects that I've worked on that I don't have thumbnails for on this page. But Lucifer Matchsticks and Spectrum and the Hanging Chair were all in my portfolio that I also submitted to colleges, and then I don't think I really submitted Black and Blue. We can check this out. This was more of a self-portrait project. You can see these cyanotypes that I made that are large scale, and you can also see some of the different photography processes that I was experimenting with and trying out. So I think I'll just go through all of the pages for art and tech. This is my page for my matchsticks. This is my page for the hanging chair. This is Spectrum, which includes a video, which is the same one that's on my YouTube channel. And then my most recent 2 pages are virtual reality and embodied interfaces. So these were both projects from my sophomore year. 2 virtual reality projects. One of them, the one on the left, was all about kind of like creating a sculpture out of the way an artist moves around their studio space. So usually we only see the final project. So I wanted to use virtual reality and like trackers and stuff to be able to find a new way to show another side of what goes into an art project. And the other one is kind of a similar project. You can check this out as well, I think, on my YouTube channel. I'll play it real quick. It's a similar project where I wanted to show people another perspective about like what goes on inside the mind of an artist as they're creating work. It's basically a virtual reality experience that has a bunch of like song bites, a bunch of like text messages, my sketches, and all these different things that inspire me when I create art. And this was my final project from one of my classes. It's one of my favorite works. So embodied interfaces was another class I took that same quarter last year, and it pretty much has just 2 of the projects that I was most excited about, especially this one, which was just a chair that I designed to sit in backwards, kind of to replicate the shape of a human like hug. So you sit in it and you put your arms through those 2 holes on the side here, and it projects basically like a virtual call, and like it replicates that feeling. I kind of was imagining a future world where human interaction and human communication and expression is kind of like a commodity. I didn't know that this was gonna be kind of how the world is gonna look anyway. And I Still See You is a project where I basically wanted to showcase how our phones are always kind of like viewing us, even if we're not looking. The amount of data and the amount of like information that our phones are able to trace beyond just the stuff that we input ourselves is really, really great. Kind of like if you hide yourself from your computer camera, that's when everything starts working, and so the GIF that I created and the animation I created starts playing when you're not looking. So that's everything for the creative projects side of my portfolio, and the next section is arts leadership, which is basically just ArtX. ArtX is the organization that I'm a part of at Stanford. I was the co-president and then the president for a while, and basically our goal was to merge art and technology, and ArtX with like the X at the top is basically art like risen to the exponent of whatever else you input there. I just have an example of some of the events that we put up. So this one right here, where we tried to like replicate a dorm room, and we painted it completely white so that people could come in and like spray paint everywhere, like break things, paint all over, glitter, you know, anything that they wanted to do to the dorm room. We also put together a live show, so we had a jazz band play, we had a magician, we had people with virtual instruments that they had made themselves, alongside an art market. We created the art market alongside the live shows and the installations so that people could kind of submit their work. We created the prints for them, and then we wanted to kind of put a professionalism in like creating art and make it a more concrete place where people could start selling their work or trading for their work, just to like really get that flow going. And then I have some posters of other previous events that we've also had. And then I've got film and videos, and for this one I just have my show reel. So it's just a bunch of clips from things that I've worked on. This is my nano fit, this is from a 48 hour, and then I have some examples. I definitely want to put some more examples in there as well. So I just ran you through all of the art projects that I had in my portfolio and the ways that I presented them, and then the only page that's left is my about page, which basically has why I create art, why I think it's important, and a list of my past experiences, kind of like my resume, but more just focused on like art experiences and exhibitions. I think there are definitely some things that I could work on to make the portfolio flow a little bit better and to be more smooth, and to also include a little bit more information about why I made certain decisions and why I put certain things together, and the design process and the sketches and everything that went into each of the projects. I think that's very important, especially for product design. Another thing that I didn't really include, which I think will help me in the future, to put some case studies of like UX design projects. Now that I've worked on my internship and done some like Figma work for them, I think it's really, really important that I include that as well. The research that went into it, talking and need finding with audiences, and I think that those are incredibly essential parts, especially if you're applying for product design jobs. That being said, this is the portfolio that I sent to my very first product design internship, and I'll talk a little bit about how I kind of like ran into it. It was very unexpected, I think, for me. So every year, Stanford BASES, which is like the Business Association and Entrepreneurship Club on campus, they host a startup career fair. And I think this year it was in February. And they invited startups from all over to come and present and recruit from our student body. I wasn't originally planning on going to the startup fair because it's usually extremely tech focused, and as a sophomore it's a little bit harder to find those jobs. But I knew some of my friends worked really, really hard to put it together, and some of my other friends were also interested in going, so I decided to head out there anyways. I was talking to someone who was a really, really cool like game designer, game developer, and was working on a new learning experience for students, and I thought that was really, really cool. What I realized then is that even though he was asking for like front-end developers and other people who had sophomore development experience, I realized that I had skills that I still think would have been valuable to that company, and I decided to broaden my horizons a little bit. And so right across, or just adjacent from that desk, was OXO, which is the startup that I ended up working at this summer. And the co-founder was there, and I kind of just introduced myself and asked what OXO was. The way they described it being kind of like the future of mobility, to kind of eliminate the amount of parking that there is in the city and to share cars and kind of have that mutual benefit for everyone involved. I started talking about how I'm really interested in developing experiences for people, and I usually work in like sculptures and installations, and I want to create virtual reality things. And a lot of the previous startups that I talked to before them were like, okay, that's not something that we're like really looking at, it's not really what we've been interested in. When I was talking to OXO, they were really like, oh wow, that's really interesting, we're actually thinking a lot about that when we're developing like our handoff, like when you have that match and when you have to like switch cards with people, what does that experience look like? Overall, I just honestly loved that conversation that I had. After that, I was just so excited about the idea of like developing what a moving parking lot would look like. I left my resume with them, and then I went home and I immediately started sketching that experience. That was already just a really good sign of like, okay, this was really engaging and I think that this could work out. Very quickly after that, maybe just a couple of days later, I got an email from them based on my resume, and they were like, hey, we're really interested in interviewing you for the product design spot. Are you still interested? And I was like, yeah, of course. And we set up another interview right on campus, and I met with the co-founder again, and it was honestly just a really great experience. After that initial one-on-one chat, one-on-one interview, it felt super casual, and I was sent an assignment. They sent me like a Notion page with the task that they wanted me to design for. It was a really great interviewing experience. So then they were like, okay, we really like your assignment, and they invited me to have a chat with the CEO in person at their office, and that's when what hit, and we had to do that interview online instead. The questions he asked were so different from what I'd ever been asked before. It really felt introspective in a way while we were like having a conversation. So it felt great. It was a really fun exercise, and by the time I finished the interview, it already kind of felt like I knew that this was where I was gonna go, and it felt like they were really excited about me as well. So when they got back to me with an offer the next day, I kind of talked it over with my friends, I talked it over with my family, and pretty much immediately was like, okay, yes, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this job. I'm really excited about it. And that was the whole process. None of this would have happened if I hadn't gone to that initial startup fair that I first didn't think was gonna be for me, but I had that little inkling of a thought that I was interested in it, and I'm so glad that I just went. So I guess the moral of the story is jobs and opportunities and internships, they don't come from the regular routes. I had done the applications online, I had done all of those things that all the online forms tell me to do, but in the end it came from the one avenue where I didn't think it would come from. So there you have it. That's my full online portfolio along with my application experience for internships as a sophomore. I hope this was helpful to you. I know I already said at the beginning of the video, but if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel to see more. I'm also really excited to hear more from you, so please leave comments. I respond to all of them. I always love hearing from you, so don't be shy, say whatever you want, and I'll see you all in the very next video. Thank you all. Bye.